There's a dangerous illusion in the world we live in today. It's the idea that recognition equals value, that if someone likes us, praises us, claps for us, then we must be doing something right. And if they don't, we begin to question ourselves. But let me ask you something powerful. What if no one applauded you? Would your work still matter? We've all been there. You pour your effort, your time, your soul into something, and then you wait for someone to notice, to approve, to validate. And when it doesn't come, you wonder if you're enough. This is the trap of external validation. It feels good, sure, but it is hollow, temporary, fragile. Hard work, on the other hand, is permanent. It builds something real, not just in the world, but in you. It sharpens your discipline, fortifies your resilience, and strengthens your sense of purpose. It doesn't rely on applause because its reward is the growth it causes within. When you work hard, not for recognition, but for mastery, your progress becomes your pride. You see, when you chase external validation, your value becomes negotiable. You become a product of opinions, constantly adjusting who you are based on who is watching. But when your compass is your work ethic, not public approval, you become unshakable. Your worth is no longer tied to applause, but to effort, integrity, and inner growth. The most successful people, those who shaped industries, changed the world, or led movements, they didn't start out being celebrated. In fact, many of them were ignored, misunderstood, even ridiculed. But what they had was an unrelenting commitment to doing the work, regardless of who was watching, because they understood something vital. Growth happens in silence. Mastery is built in obscurity. The loudest part of your journey should be your footsteps, not the cheers. And here's a truth that no one tells you: external validation isn't evil. It's just unreliable. One day you're everyone's hero, the next you're forgotten. If your motivation is rooted in praise, you'll always be a slave to public opinion. But when your drive comes from a commitment to excellence, from a belief in what you're building, you free yourself from the need to be noticed. You rise above distraction, and instead of performing, you start creating. In the end, validation fades, awards gather dust, praise is forgotten, but the person you become through effort, that endures, that becomes your legacy. The discipline you build, the skills you refine, the character you develop, these are the true trophies of life, and none of them come from being liked. They come from doing the work. So stop waiting for permission. Stop needing applause. You don't need to be seen to matter. You just need to show up, do the work every day, especially when no one's watching, because that is where greatness lies, not in the echo of the crowd, but in the silence of your grind. 5 keynotes of the speech: external validation is fleeting, but internal growth from hard work is permanent. Relying on others' approval makes your self-worth negotiable and unstable. True success and mastery are built in silence, away from the spotlight. Hard work creates resilience, discipline, and lasting confidence. Legacy is built through effort, not applause. Consistency matters more than recognition. External validation is fleeting, but internal growth from hard work is permanent. This is a truth that reveals itself only over time, often in moments of quiet struggle rather than public success. When we seek validation, what we're really seeking is a signal from the outside world that we are enough, that what we're doing matters. We look for likes, praise, promotions, awards, something that tells us you're doing great. But the problem with these signals is that they are temporary and conditional. One moment the world cheers for you, and the next it moves on to someone else. External approval is like a gust of wind. It can lift you up for a moment, but it cannot carry you long distances. Hard work, however, plants something deeper. It builds an internal foundation that no one can take away from you. It's not just about producing results. It's about the process you undergo while putting in the effort. Each challenge you face, each moment of doubt you push through, each late night of persistence, it all contributes to who you become. That growth doesn't vanish when the applause fades. It's not erased when people stop noticing you, because the development happened inside you. It's yours. It's permanent. There is something powerful about knowing that your progress doesn't depend on someone else's opinion, that the person you are becoming is being shaped by your willingness to show up and do the work, not by how many people are watching or clapping. Hard work teaches you that value doesn't come from attention. It comes from effort. When you're committed to improving, learning, and striving towards something meaningful, you're building more than skills. You're building identity. You're building integrity. You're forming a deep relationship with yourself, one that's grounded in truth, not performance. People who rely on external validation are often stuck on a roller coaster. Their self-worth rises and falls based on how they're perceived. They might feel confident when they're being recognized, but they crash when they're ignored. This is not a sustainable way to live. It leaves people anxious, constantly comparing, constantly seeking reassurance. But those who rely on their own effort, who measure themselves by the quality of their work, are far more grounded. They can stand in any room, noticed or unnoticed, and still know who they are. That's the strength that hard work creates. We all like recognition. It feels good to be appreciated. But when it becomes the reason we do what we do, we lose our anchor. We begin to bend ourselves to fit expectations instead of growing into our fullest potential. Hard work doesn't always get immediate results. In fact, it often feels thankless in the moment, but is always changing you. It's sharpening your mind, strengthening your will, and preparing you for things far beyond the short-term rewards of validation. The real reward isn't in being seen. It's in becoming capable, resilient, focused, and grounded. Think of a person who works every day on a craft, whether it's writing, engineering, teaching, or leading, not for applause, but because they believe in the process. Over time, this person gains depth. They may not have viral moments or trending applause, but they carry with them a quiet confidence, a clarity of purpose that can't be faked. That confidence doesn't come from being celebrated. It comes from showing up day after day, even when no one's watching. That is the kind of growth that sticks. That is the kind of strength that lasts. When you commit to hard work, you are investing in something that no one can take away from you. Your knowledge, your discipline, your grit, these aren't gifts handed to you by others. They are earned, and because they are earned, they are real. External validation might feel good, but it doesn't shape you the way real work does. It doesn't develop you. It doesn't prepare you for adversity. But the effort you put in, the energy you invest in becoming better, that transforms you. It gives you something solid to stand on. In the end, it's not about being the most celebrated person in the room. It's about being the most prepared, the most consistent, the most self-aware. Those things are the result of hard work, not applause. And they stay with you long after the lights go out and the crowd disappears. Because while validation fades, the person you become through honest effort is someone you can rely on for a lifetime. That's what makes it permanent. Relying on others' approval makes yourself worth negotiable and unstable. The moment you place your sense of value in someone else's hands, you surrender control of your identity. It may not feel like it right away, because praise and admiration can be intoxicating. They make you feel seen, appreciated, even special. But the danger lies in becoming dependent on those moments to feel like you matter. When your worth is tied to someone else's opinion, you begin living on a borrowed sense of self. And borrowed worth always comes with conditions. When we seek approval, we often shift our actions to match expectations. We stop asking what's true to us and start asking what others want to see from us. We say things to please. We act in ways to impress. Slowly, we lose the thread of who we really are, and in its place, we build a version of ourselves shaped by the reactions we want to receive. This isn't confidence. This isn't strength. This is performance. And no matter how good your performance is, you always know somewhere deep down that it isn't fully real. That gap between who you are and who you present yourself to be can grow into something painful. The more we feed on approval, the more addicted we become to it. A kind word, a compliment, a pat on the back, it can feel like fuel, but it's more like sugar. It gives you a rush, but it leaves you crashing. It doesn't build anything lasting. And when the approval doesn't come, when someone criticizes you, overlooks you, or simply ignores you, you begin to doubt your value. You wonder if you've lost something, but you haven't. You were just looking in the wrong place to begin with. The truth is, no one else has the authority to define your worth. That's your responsibility. When your self-worth becomes negotiable, you live in constant fear of disapproval. Every decision starts to come with anxiety. You second guess your instincts. You overthink your choices. You try to read people's reactions, not to learn, but to survive. And that fear keeps you small. It keeps you stuck in roles and habits that are designed to win approval rather than pursue excellence or authenticity. You stop taking risks. You stop growing. You stop being honest, because honesty might threaten the approval you've come to depend on. That's how people get trapped in a version of life that looks good on the outside but feels hollow on the inside. There's a deep irony in all this. The more you chase approval, the more unstable your identity becomes. And the more unstable you feel, the more you crave approval to reassure yourself. It's a loop that's hard to escape from unless you make a conscious shift, deciding to root your self-worth not in applause, but in effort, not in acceptance, but in self-respect. That means showing up for yourself, doing the work, and living by values that don't bend with opinions. It means trusting that who you are, when you are honest, disciplined, and aligned, is already enough. People will always have opinions. They will praise, criticize, support, judge, misunderstand, or even ignore you. But none of that defines who you are. Their words are just reflections of their own perspectives, not truths about your identity. When you learn to separate your worth from their reactions, you become stronger. You stop fearing rejection because rejection no longer threatens your sense of self. You stop needing to prove yourself constantly because you know what you stand for. That kind of stability isn't built through validation. It's built through a commitment to growth, effort, and self-awareness. You can't please everyone. No matter how hard you try, someone will disagree, disapprove, or simply not care. And if your self-worth is hanging on their approval, you will constantly be thrown off course. But when your worth is rooted in your own principles and the effort you put in daily, then you're no longer living for the audience. You're living with purpose. You're not asking for permission to be valuable. You're proving it to yourself through the life you're building. So many people live quietly with the pressure of needing to be liked, needing to be admired. But what they really need is to reconnect with the part of themselves that isn't for sale. That part that's steady, honest, and capable of doing meaningful work even when no one notices. When your value is no longer on the table for negotiation, you start making decisions not out of fear, but out of conviction. You become less reactive and more intentional. And in that shift, you reclaim your power. Not the power to impress, but the power to become. True success and mastery are built in silence away from the spotlight. The world often celebrates the finished product, the gold medal, the best-selling book, the standing ovation, but it rarely pays attention to the quiet hours that came before. The early mornings, the late nights, the long stretches of doubt, repetition, and unseen effort are almost always invisible to others. And yet, that's where greatness is truly born. Mastery is not a loud process. It's not about viral moments or grand displays. It's about consistent, focused practice done in private, the kind of work that no one claps for but changes everything. The silence that surrounds mastery is not empty. It's filled with choices. Every day, you have to choose between comfort and effort, between distraction and discipline, between surface level progress and real depth. Those decisions happen quietly without fanfare. No one sees the moment you decide to stay committed when quitting would be easier. No one sees the hundreds of attempts, the trial and error, the internal battles you fight when no one is watching. But those moments matter more than any award you may one day receive. That is the foundation of true success. It's tempting to seek shortcuts, to find ways to be seen before you are ready, to gather attention while you're still figuring things out. But when your focus shifts to being visible too soon, you trade real growth for shallow validation. You become more concerned with how your effort appears rather than how effective it is. You start performing instead of practicing. And performance without preparation doesn't build anything lasting. It may look good for a while, but it collapses under pressure. Mastery, on the other hand, is quiet, patient, and resilient. It stands the test of time because it was built in solitude. We live in a culture that glorifies quick results. People are praised for going viral, for making a sudden impact, for being discovered overnight. But this perception is misleading. What looks like an overnight success is almost always the result of years, sometimes decades, of invisible work. The writer who suddenly breaks through has likely written thousands of pages that were never published. The athlete who wins on the world stage has spent years training in silence, sweating through routines no one ever saw. Success reveals itself loudly, but it is earned silently. In the silent grind, you learn things that the spotlight can never teach. You learn patience because results take time. You learn humility because mistakes are constant. You learn resilience because not every day is easy, and not every effort leads to immediate progress. These are the qualities that separate those who chase attention from those who achieve excellence. It's easy to look confident on a stage, but it's in the quiet repetition of the practice room where real confidence is built. Not the kind that wavers under pressure, but the kind that endures because it's based on real capability. There's a rhythm to this kind of work. It's not glamorous, but it is transformative. You wake up, you show up, and you do the work regardless of whether anyone is watching. That kind of consistency reshapes who you are. Over time, you become someone who doesn't need the noise to feel important. You don't need to be constantly affirmed because you've developed a deep relationship with the process itself. You begin to trust the journey, not because it's easy, but because it's making you stronger. Most people underestimate the power of being unknown. When no one's watching, you're free to fail, to experiment, to stumble without consequence. You get to discover who you really are without pressure to impress or meet expectations. That space, often overlooked or rushed through, is a gift. It's where you build the parts of yourself that will carry you when you finally do step into the spotlight. Because eventually, the world will notice. But when that moment comes, it won't be your visibility that sustains you. It will be your foundation. And that foundation is built in the silence. To master anything, your craft, your purpose, your life, you must be willing to embrace the quiet, to value the hidden work more than the visible reward, to understand that success isn't something you chase, it's something you prepare for. And preparation happens when no one else is around, when it's just you, your effort, and the decision to keep going. Every time you choose the silent path of practice over the noisy chase for approval, you're building something that lasts, something that doesn't depend on applause, but on ability, something that doesn't fade with attention, but grows stronger with time. Hard work creates resilience, discipline, and lasting confidence. It does more than just produce results. It transforms you from the inside out. When you commit yourself to consistent effort, especially in the face of difficulty, something powerful begins to happen. You start to realize that you're capable of more than you thought. Challenges that once seemed overwhelming become manageable. Obstacles that used to discourage you become stepping stones. This is not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. And that strength doesn't come from luck or talent. It comes from the repeated act of choosing effort over ease, progress over comfort. Resilience is not something people are born with. It's something they build slowly over time. Every time you keep going after a setback, every time you try again after failure, you add another layer to your resilience. It becomes a quiet toughness that lives within you, not loud or boastful, but firm and reliable. Life doesn't stop throwing difficulties at you. But with resilience built through hard work, you stop being shaken so easily. You learn how to keep your balance in chaos, how to stay grounded in uncertainty, and how to move forward even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. That strength is earned, not given. Discipline, too, is forged through the habit of hard work. It's the willingness to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself. It's about aligning yourself with a bigger purpose. It's about having a clear enough why that it overpowers your excuses. Every time you choose to show up, whether for your health, your craft, your goals, you reinforce a sense of responsibility within yourself. And discipline isn't just about getting things done. It's about building a reputation with yourself. When you keep your own promises through consistent effort, you start to trust yourself more. You stop relying on motivation and start relying on commitment. You stop being controlled by how you feel in the moment and start being led by what you value in the long run. And then there's confidence, the kind that actually lasts. Not the surface level confidence that comes from being praised or from temporary success, but the kind that is rooted in effort, in growth, in knowing what you've been through. When you've worked hard for something, really earned it, you don't need to convince yourself you're capable. You already know. You've seen yourself put in the hours, push through discomfort, bounce back from failure. That experience becomes your evidence. It becomes the foundation of a quiet, unshakable belief in yourself. This kind of confidence isn't about arrogance or showing off. It's the kind that lets you walk into any room, face any challenge, and know you'll figure it out. Not because you're perfect, but because you've trained yourself to keep going. Hard work also strips away illusions. It teaches you how to deal with reality, what's working, what isn't, where you need to improve. It humbles you while also building you up. You come to understand that nothing worthwhile comes quickly, and that mastery demands patience. But in that process, you begin to fall in love with growth itself. You stop needing things to be easy. You begin to crave challenges because they reveal to you what you're capable of. And that's the real reward of hard work. Not the results, but the person you become in pursuit of them. Most people want confidence and resilience, but they don't want the effort that creates them. They want the rewards of discipline without the discomfort it takes to develop it. But those qualities can't be faked, and they can't be handed to you. They can only be built one decision at a time, one moment of persistence after another. And the beautiful thing is anyone can build them. You don't need to be the most talented, the most connected, or the most recognized. You just need to be willing to keep showing up, to keep doing the work, and to trust that the process is shaping you in ways far beyond what's visible right now. The transformation that comes from hard work isn't always dramatic or immediate. Sometimes it's slow and subtle. You don't always notice it happening. But one day you'll look back and realize that the person you are today could handle things that would have broken the person you were before. You'll realize that your confidence isn't situational anymore. It's internal. Your discipline isn't forced. It's natural. Your resilience isn't reactive. It's part of who you are. All of that comes from the same place: hard, consistent, intentional work. The kind of work that challenges you, stretches you, and ultimately changes you. Legacy is built through effort, not applause. Consistency matters more than recognition. In a world so fixated on visibility, on moments that go viral, on being seen and celebrated, it's easy to forget that what truly lasts is not what gets the most attention, but what is built with persistence over time. Recognition may feel like success, but it's not the same as impact. Applause is momentary. It echoes for a short while and then fades into silence. But the effort you put in daily, the commitment you uphold even when no one notices, that is what forms the foundation of your legacy. True legacy is not about being remembered because you were popular. It's about being remembered because your work mattered, because you showed up consistently, because your actions aligned with your values, and because you stayed the course when others chose the easier path. It's not about how loud your story was when it was told, but how deeply it resonated because of how you lived it. That kind of legacy isn't created overnight. It is the byproduct of years of steady effort, of showing up when it was inconvenient, of doing things with integrity when shortcuts were available. When you focus on applause, you become vulnerable to the crowd. You begin to chase what pleases people rather than what fulfills your purpose. You adjust, compromise, or dilute your efforts just to stay in favor. But applause isn't loyal. The same people who cheer for you today can turn their attention elsewhere tomorrow. And when your work is built only to attract attention, it often lacks the depth and durability needed to survive long term. But effort, honest, sustained effort, has no such weakness. It strengthens you, shapes your character, and lays down layer after layer of credibility that time cannot erase. Consistency isn't glamorous. It's not headline worthy. No one throws a party for the person who showed up every single day, who stayed disciplined behind the scenes, who quietly and steadily worked through setbacks and kept moving forward. But consistency is powerful because it builds momentum. And momentum over time becomes mastery. Mastery becomes impact. And impact is what leaves a mark. That's how legacies are formed, not in the flash of a single success, but in the rhythm of committed action, repeated over and over, long after the excitement fades. The person who builds a legacy is the one who understands that greatness is a result of compounded effort. They are more concerned with planting seeds than with harvesting praise. They trust that what they're building has value, even when others don't see it yet. They don't rush for attention. They don't compromise for approval. They do the work because the work itself matters. And because of that mindset, they end up doing more, growing deeper, and leaving something behind that outlasts them. Recognition may bring you to the surface, but only consistent effort anchors you in depth. You can impress people with a moment, but you influence them through a lifetime of action. And influence rooted in discipline and principle creates something unshakable. It affects people long after you're gone. It becomes the blueprint others follow, not because you told them to, but because they saw how you lived, how you worked, how you stayed true to what you believed in. Your name may not always be trending, your face may not always be in the spotlight, but the values you upheld, the standards you maintained, and the energy you gave to your craft, those things leave ripples. They affect your family, your peers, your industry, your community. And those ripples, if born of consistent, purposeful effort, travel further than applause ever could. There's something timeless about a person who keeps showing up, who keeps doing meaningful work without needing to be celebrated for it. That kind of person becomes a force. Quiet, perhaps, overlooked often, but undeniable in their influence. Because what they create is real, it is tested, it is earned, and it is lasting. That is the essence of legacy. Not the noise that surrounds your name while you're alive, but the quiet, powerful mark you leave behind when the noise fades away. And that mark, your true legacy, comes not from how loudly the world clapped for you, but how consistently you did the work that mattered. When the noise settles and the applause fades, what remains is the work you've done, the person you've become, and the impact you've made. Chasing external validation may bring momentary satisfaction, but it can never build the kind of strength, clarity, and purpose that come from showing up day after day with integrity and effort. Hard work doesn't need to be seen to be valuable. Its rewards are internal, resilience, discipline, confidence, and those qualities are what carry you through life far beyond recognition. You don't need approval to matter. You need commitment to grow. You don't need to be celebrated to succeed. You need to be consistent. Because in the end, it's not the praise that defines you, it's the perseverance. And that is how hard work beats external validation every time.